It's a question that's probably been uttered in millions of homes. Can't we talk about something more pleasant? It sounds like a simple request, right? But it's so much more. It's a shield, a deflection, a giant wall. But here's the thing. What if that unpleasant stuff is actually the most important conversation we'll ever have?
So that brings us to Ros Chast's incredible graphic memoir. If you don't know her work, she has this amazing way of blending these quirky, funny cartoons with really raw personal stories. And in this book, she dives headfirst into one of the toughest subjects out there: what happens in the final chapter of our parents' lives.
And yep, there's that phrase again. For Ros Chast, this wasn't just some offhand comment from her mom. Nope. It was the emotional wallpaper of their entire relationship. It was this invisible but super strong wall they'd built around all the scary stuff. Aging, getting sick, and eventually, death. And these were the exact things Chast was realizing she had to talk about. And here's the thing. While this is her very personal story, it's a journey that, let's be honest, so many of us can see ourselves in. It's kind of like a reluctant guidebook for anyone who's ever been, or one day will be, tossed into that chaotic, overwhelming new job, caring for the people who used to care for you.
All right, so where does this all begin? Well, it starts with trying to have that one conversation. You know the one. The one it's so easy to say, oh, we'll talk about it later. Until later suddenly arrives.
Okay, so let's meet the family. Chast gives us this amazing portrait of her parents, George and Elizabeth. I mean, these are people who are absolutely rooted in their world. They've lived in the same Brooklyn apartment for decades, totally set in their ways. And it's this feeling of permanence, of everything always being the same, that makes the changes that are coming feel like an earthquake.
But this brings us right back to the core problem, right? How in the world do you talk about the future with people who just won't? Her mom, Elizabeth, was the master of the shutdown. Any talk about what's next was met with a brick wall. It really was like a fortress of avoidance, and Ros was stuck outside, knocking on a door that would never open.
And we're not just talking about one person being stubborn here. This was a whole family system, a fortress of denial they'd all had a hand in building over the years. And that fortress? It's about to face a major siege.
You see, they clung to their independence with everything they had. For them, it wasn't just about dodging an awkward conversation. No, it was a fight to hold on to who they were, these capable, self-sufficient adults. They were fighting for their identity, even as the facts were starting to tell a very different story.
And those facts, well, they were becoming impossible to ignore. Ros saw all the signs, the little things and the not-so-little things. Her mom's mind getting a bit foggy, that growing confusion. Her dad finding it harder and harder just to get around. She saw it all crystal clear, even while they just kept insisting everything is fine.
Well, you can only deny reality for so long, right? Eventually, something has to give. And when it does, it forces this huge, unsettling shift in the entire family dynamic. It's what's often called the great role reversal.
And this is such a gut-wrenching moment in the story. I mean, what does happen when the child suddenly has to become the parent? Ros, who had spent her whole life looking to her parents as the ones with the answers, is all of a sudden the one in charge. It's a dizzying, emotionally loaded flip-flop that so many adult children go through. It's just this constant internal tug of war. On one hand, you've got this immense love and this deep-seated sense of obligation. But on the other hand, oh my gosh, the frustration, the guilt. You're trying to make these huge decisions for the two people who've always made their own decisions, and often they're fighting you every step of the way. And throughout the book, Ros's mind keeps snapping back to her childhood. She remembers her parents as these giants, these pillars of strength who could handle anything. So to see them now, to see their vulnerability up close, it's just profoundly sad and confusing. It's that brutal moment when you realize your heroes are, in fact, just as fragile as anyone else. So as if all of that emotional turmoil wasn't enough to deal with, it's happening alongside this other, incredibly practical and frankly maddening journey, trying to figure out the maze that is the elder care system. Literally overnight, she's not just Ros the daughter anymore. She's a project manager, a financial advisor, a medical interpreter, all these roles she never signed up for. She's been dropped into this foreign country with its own language, its own bizarre rules, and just so much bureaucracy. And the book is brutally honest about how overwhelming this all is. First, you're just trying to fight your way through mountains of paperwork. Then you're on the phone for hours with doctors and insurance companies. And all of that leads to these impossible choices, like the huge debate over in-home care versus moving them to a facility. Every single decision feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds and is wrapped in red tape.
So, wow, after all that pain and all that bureaucratic nonsense, you have to wonder, where's the relief? Is it even possible to find something pleasant to talk about when you're in the middle of all this?
Well, for Ros Chast, she finds it in her art. And this is where the book is just pure genius. Because it's a graphic memoir, she uses her cartoons, photos, and her honest text to cope. The humor isn't there to make fun of the situation, it's there to survive it. Her drawings can show you the utter absurdity of a moment, or a flash of real tenderness, in a way that a paragraph of text just never could. And that's why, in the end, this deeply personal story about her family becomes a kind of mirror for the rest of us. It's about her parents, sure, but it's really about this universal journey. The book gives you permission to admit how hard it is, to laugh at the moments that are just ridiculous, and to feel that deep, complicated love that comes with saying goodbye. It makes you feel like, okay, this is survivable, because you realize you're not alone in it.
So we're left with this final thought, this big question. How do we find that humor and honesty in what are, for sure, life's most unpleasant conversations? And maybe the book's answer is that you don't find it by running away. You find it by turning around and facing it, with all the honesty and love you can muster. And yeah, when you can, with a little bit of gallows humor too.